Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store, affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater, and oh man, I got home recently from checking out It, right? I don't know if you want to call it a remake or a reboot or whatever you want to call it. I call it damn good. I call it really damn good, and not at all entirely what I was expecting. Now, I'm a big fan of the original 1990s miniseries. I know that some people out there, the nostalgia critic, like to rag on it because it was a 1990s miniseries on TV. They were very much bound by restrictions back then that they could not get around. But regardless of anything, the Losers Club from being kids, Seth Green, Jonathan Brandis, and the others, they did a great job. And I still like Jonathan Ritter, John Ritter and everyone, Annette O'Toole and everyone as they were adults. Yeah, it was campy. Right, it was whatever it was, but it was still enjoyable. And Tim Curry, who doesn't love Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown? It's one of his most iconic roles. I'd go as far as to argue that with the younger generation, it's more iconic than Dr. Frankenfurter, to be honest with you. In this particular movie, coming out and blowing every and all expectation away simply shows you that these kind of films have legs if they're done well. And I've said this multiple times, and I will in fact say this again. I do feel It owes part of its success to the Conjuring films. Very similar in nature, kind of spooky thriller, horror, ghosts, puppets, demons type stuff. And essentially that's, I think, what helped tie in or lead into this particular movie doing as well as it did. Never mind the fact that the marketing was brilliant, the trailers looked great, and the cast is sublime. All those kids, they're great. They're fantastic. So if you don't know the story of It, what are you even doing here? Go watch the 1990s miniseries or read the 1,200-page novel. But basically, it's like this. In the town of Derry in 1988 and 1989, a bunch of children go missing, one of whom is Georgie, Bill's younger brother. Bill always kind of carries that with him. He's been trying to find his brother for the better part of a year. And, when summer comes around, the next summer, him and his friends seek out to try to discover what happened to Georgie, whether or not he's in I think it's like the Barrens. Is that what they called it? The sewer, essentially, and then go from there. And this is where all the kids in the club and other kids as well start being tormented by Pennywise the Clown, who finds their deepest, darkest fears and shows it to them in order to feed on their fear before feasting on their corpse. The narrative of the story has always been kind of interesting to me because I haven't read the book. I've seen the miniseries. I should read the book. And the character Pennywise, or I should say the horrors that Pennywise takes on, essentially is like Dracula, Wolfman, the Mummy, these kind of old creatures that you would see in horror films from the 50s, which is when the book was originally set. It was set in the 1950s, and the beginning part, when they were older, was set in the 1980s. Here is just kind of the 1980s when they were kids, and then and going up to when they were adults, which we didn't see any of that yet. We'll see that in chapter 2 whenever that comes out, 2018, 2019, who knows yet. But it's interesting to see that they decided to move away from that. What I liked was that they focused more on like the subtle horrors that might bug kids, like Stan. When he's in temple studying for his bar mitzvah, and he walks into the rabbi's office, and there's a painting of a woman, a very distorted kind of some paint, I forget the person's name right now, and she's got the flute, and she just looks distorted, and that scares him. Every time he walks by it, you can tell that frightens him, and that's what Pennywise was using to draw out that fear. Richie, which was Seth Green's character in the original miniseries, this time played by Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things, who, by the way, still every scene he was in, that kid was great. He didn't this time encounter a werewolf. They changed that in order to be clowns. He hates clowns, which might be one of the reasons why Pennywise was always in a clown form. I don't know if that was a direct connection or just they wanted to find a way to add more clowns to justify Pennywise looking the way that he did. But his scene was pretty great towards the end. Bill's scene with Georgie in the basement and trying to drag him down was pretty fantastic. Bev and the blood in the tub or in the sink and everything was done very well. Very, very bloody, very great. Ben in the library with the headless mummy was interesting, although not like as it came up later on. The mummy came back later on, but the mummy the first time didn't have a head, so we didn't really know that it was a mummy necessarily. Eddie with the leper was pretty great, although they cut out the whole battery acid bit. I don't know if that was made up for the miniseries or not. Again, I haven't read the book, but the aesthetics of what made the kids get scared, I thought was handled very well. What made the kids bond, I thought was done very well, and their chemistry was undeniable. Especially the actress who played Beverly Marsh. She had a very good kind of love triangle relationship with Bill and with Ben, and it could go either way, right? But you could see that she very much was liking Ben. On the, I remember the miniseries ending with John Ritter and Annette O'Toole getting together, so Ben and Annette, or in Bev. And at the end of that one, Mike says, "Oh, hey, yeah, this time around they're able to have kids. They have their baby on the way, because life is good for these people." And you could see that chemistry brewing there, especially because they got each other. They both understood each other. They both saw each other. But there was a chemistry there between Bill and between Bev, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Bill was searching for something and was also never going to take no for an answer. And the leader of the group, so to speak, and there was that attraction there to that sort of thing. Plus, they said in no uncertain terms that Bev was molested by her father. I don't know if she was molested. I didn't take it as full blown molesting. I looked at it as more like grooming, like grooming a little bit is what I took it as, because the father was all like, are you still my little girl, Bev? And I thought that was like a virgin thing. Right? Like, I don't know. I mean, it was creepy as shit. Let's just leave it at that. The kid who played Mike did a pretty good job, although Mike was probably the most underdeveloped character. No, I would say Stan is the most underdeveloped character. Then right above that is Mike. But when you're running an ensemble with a group of 6 children, it's hard to give everyone the screen time. You have your leads, you have your back cast, your supporting cast, so on and so forth. But the movie, again, handled them all very well. There was nice, great aesthetics. When they were in June 1989, you see movie theater, they're showing Tim Burton's Batman and Lethal Weapon 2. What I both liked about that is both of those movies are Warner Brothers. So that was great. And then, of course, when it was August 1989, they had Nightmare on Elm Street 5 playing at the theater. So on the marquee, you see it written there. And I'm like, that's just cool, man. Like, I just really liked that there was that level of aesthetics brought back to the 80s. They had the arcade set up. They had New Kids on the Block was kind of a reoccurring joke in the film. But really, I would say probably the standout player in all of this was a kid who played Henry Bowers. He was creepy. Every scene with him was really intense, and they handled that very, very, very well. But his ending made very little sense to me. His ending, if I recall, I mean, again, miniseries, him and his friends follow them into the sewers. His friends are killed by Pennywise. His hair goes white. He goes insane. They pretty much blame all of the murders in Derry on him, and he goes to a mental asylum. And then 30 years later, or 27 years later, Pennywise calls him out of a catatonic state to go back and finish the job by killing all of the Losers Club. Here, he attacks Mike. Mike basically assaults him or fights back and ends up killing him, or so we think. They could change that at the end, because there's going to be a lot of flashbacks in the sequel going back to 1989. So it's entirely possible that in the very first flashback, we'll see them pulling Henry Bowers' body out. He's still alive, but he's just messed up and he's crazy, so they send him off. Although that plot device in the miniseries failed to work. Again, it could work better in the book. I have no idea, but you get I got the info I got. But the kid who played him did a great job. And really brought this insane intensity. Like when he was out there shooting, bottles of Jack Daniels with his father's police service, police issued, pistol. And then he was like telling his friend, go ahead and grab the cat. And like, I'm like, oh, damn. Like they're hinting at this. I mean, they didn't kill the cat, obviously, but when you look at something like how they handled Georgie's death, and like Pennywise bites off his arm and tears off his arm, and then Georgie's crawling in the rain and is just gushing blood from his arm, and then the hand comes out and drags him back into the sewer, was just one of those things where you're like, holy crap. Like they went there with this movie in a few ways, especially with all the kids swearing, which was aces. It was fantastic. It felt like 12, 13-year-old kids that are dealing with this supernatural situation. How are they going to vent their frustrations? They're going to curse like sailors, and I loved it. But so they did a lot of things that were what I expected from an R-rated adaptation of it. But they avoided the sex scene, which we already knew about. And it wouldn't fit into the characters anyway. I don't think it would have fit with this adaptation. Stephen King was kind of like, why is everyone making so much of a big deal about like one passage from a book? I don't know, Stephen King, because it's one girl servicing 5 other dudes in a sewer with a whole bunch of floating corpses ahead of them or overhead of them. So it's one of those things where it's just maybe not the right time for a bit of a Roman orgy. You know what I mean? But that being said, let's talk about Pennywise the Clown. Bill Skarsgard did a fantastic job. I was a little bit concerned at first because of my love, my adoration of Tim Curry in the role. And I saw the opening scene of the movie with Pennywise before The Dark Tower last month, and I really liked what they did with it. And so I wanted more Pennywise on the screen. However, the problem with Pennywise is what I had called out in a video a while ago, where too much Pennywise would ruin the scare effects. And a lot of people were like, no, you want more Pennywise. But the truth be told is there was too much Pennywise in this movie at times in order for it to really be freaky. Especially the scenes where the kids were first being introduced to Pennywise. They weren't really scary. But when they got to the projector scene and Pennywise comes through the projection and he is like full huge, and the way that it was shot, and you could tell if this was done in 3D, it would be like popping out at you, but in like a well done way. That was legitimately terrifying. And then when they go into the house and they're trying to track him down before going into the sewers, and he does everything he does there, that was well done. It was well done with him as a villain who was feeding on the fear of children. But I liked the fact that they really, amplified the message of facing your fears and facing your fears with your friends, your support group, and how that was a big part of this entire story, especially with the ending when they basically treated him like the guys treated the copy or the fax machine from Office Space. Holy crap, the beatdown on Pennywise was awesome. They let him have it. I kept hoping for the battery acid part. I did. I will fully admit that didn't happen. Because I think that would have worked for Eddie's character. I get it now. Like, it's helping him get over his fears. Like, no, it's battery acid. It's a weapon. You can use it as a weapon. But then again, the 1990s miniseries, way smaller budget than what they had here. But ultimately, it was just a well done movie. Chapter 2, whenever it drops, I'll be there opening weekend. I want to watch this movie again. If not for Pennywise and for the visual aesthetics, definitely for the kids. The chemistry was wonderful. It felt like a movie that was based in the 1980s. It felt like something you would see alongside of Goonies at a double feature or Stand By Me at a double feature. And it just worked very well. And my hat goes off to everyone involved in the production. For a $35 million budget, you knocked this out of the park. And this is one of the things why you're hearing stories now about horror movies saving Hollywood. It's because, or saving storytelling, because they're able to tell these simple, convincingly scary tales for a very modest budget, and then make lots of cash, because people just like to be scared, and not scared in stupid ways, like with the upcoming film Polaroid, a ripoff of R.L. Stein's Say Cheese and Die, the remake of Flatliners, and a movie called Friend Request, where a girl unfriends somebody, and apparently that girl is a witch. Or something. I have no idea. Those movies make me just go, about horror. Movies like It make me want to come back to the theater multiple times and see them again. All right, guys, that wraps up this review. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you guys like it, you guys hate it. Either way, please be sure to support the channel by thumbsing it up, commenting below, and checking back often for new content from me. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been $3 Theater. Have yourself a great day, and see you guys later.